gunshot victims. 122 West Garvey Avenue. Stage at Newmark and Ramona. Stage at Ramona and Garvey. Enter from the west.
Can you confirm with PD if we're clear to enter?
All units 122 West Garvey is clear to enter.
On January 21st, 2023, as Monterey Park celebrated the Lunar New Year, a gunman entered the Star Ballroom Dance Studio at 10:22 p.m. and opened fire, ending 11 lives and injuring others. Minutes later, he drove to another ballroom with the same intent, only to be stopped by a single act of courage. Till today, no one can explain his motive. This is the story of Huu Can Tran. A 72-year-old man turned a night of celebration to sorrow, the lives taken and the unanswered questions that still linger. Monterey Park is not just a city, it is a heartbeat of Asian American life woven into the streets of Southern California. During Lunar New Year, that heartbeat grows louder, pulsing through storefronts, restaurants, and community gatherings. On the night of January 21st, lanterns glowed in windows like warm eyes watching over the festivities. Firecracker residue dusted sidewalks. Families flowed down Garvey Avenue with arms full of festival food and red envelopes. The air itself felt festive, thick with the promise of renewal. At 10:22 p.m., the celebration at Star Ballroom was shattered by a sound that did not belong. The pop of gunfire cracked through music and conversation like a lightning strike tearing open a calm sky. In seconds, the festive rhythm dissolved into panic. The gunman, 72-year-old Huu Can Tran, stepped into the hole carrying a firearm and opened fire on the unsuspecting dancers. The first shots caused confusion. Some thought it was a speaker malfunction or something falling. But when bodies began to collapse and mirrors reflected the horror back at them, confusion turned into terror. Chairs toppled, drinks spilled. People ducked behind tables or sprinted toward exits. Many of the dancers had no time to react before the next round of shots filled the room. The sound of bullets ricocheted off mirrored walls, amplifying the violence. Some survivors recalled the way the music stopped in an instant, leaving only screams and the thundering echo of gunfire.
I heard the sound like a bullet.
The shooter moved with chilling focus, targeting people who just minutes earlier had been laughing and dancing. Some victims were shot while attempting to shield friends. Others were struck while fleeing toward the doorway. 10 people lost their lives on the ballroom floor. Many more were wounded, left dazed, disoriented, bleeding, or crawling for safety. The floor, once polished and smooth, became a scene of chaos. Overturned chairs, scattered shoes, broken glasses, blood staining the boards that had held decades of dance. Survivors huddled in corners, whispering frantic prayers or calling out for loved ones who didn't answer. Outside, passers-by continued walking past the building, unaware that inside, a community had just been torn apart. The entire attack lasted only minutes, but its impact would ripple across the nation. Elderly victims who had come to celebrate the new year were violently taken from their families. Joy turned to devastation with brutal speed. When the gunman walked out, the silence he left behind was suffocating. Sirens finally pierced the night. First responders rushed in, stepping into a scene they would later struggle to describe. Survivors were escorted out with shaking hands and shattered voices. Some could barely stand, others cried in disbelief. A few tried to go back inside, wanting to help their friends, only to be held back by officers. The Star Ballroom would never again be the place it was that night. A sanctuary for movement, music, and community had become a crime scene. And the shooter, a man with more violence planned, was already on the road to his next target. After leaving Star Ballroom, Tran climbed into his white cargo van and drove away into the night. The streets of Monterey Park still shimmered with festival lights, unaware of the massacre that had just taken place. The gunman was heading toward Alhambra, toward the Lai Lai Ballroom and Studio, a familiar venue in the same dance community. Inside Lai Lai, the environment was calm. A handful of patrons mingled, enjoying a quieter night of dancing. Music played softly. People leaned against counters, chatting in small groups. 26-year-old Tsay was managing the entry desk that evening, performing routine tasks, checking tickets, watching the flow of dancers, handling small responsibilities with the casual ease of someone accustomed to the environment. Then the door opened and everything changed. Through the narrow space dividing safety from chaos, Tsay saw the gunman enter with a firearm in hand. It was the same weapon that had just been used to kill 10 people. In that moment, Tsay felt an instinctive jolt of fear, but also something else, recognition of imminent death if he didn't act. Tran raised the gun. Tsay didn't think. His body moved before his mind finished forming the thought. He lunged. The fight that followed was desperate, messy, and visceral. Tsay grappled with the gunman, hands slipping, heart pounding. The gun shifted between them in a dangerous tug-of-war that could have ended with more shots, more blood, more lives destroyed. They crashed into walls, slammed into the counter, wrestled for control of the weapon as their bodies strained against each other. In the chaos, Tsay managed to wrench the gun from Tran's hands. The instant he secured it, something in the shooter froze. Tsay pointed the weapon back at him, shouting for him to leave. The young man's voice shook not from weakness but from the raw intensity of survival coursing through him. Tran hesitated, then fled. The massacre he intended to repeat at Lai Lai Ballroom never happened, not because of police intervention, not because of luck, but because one young man chose to fight even when the odds were brutal. Tsay's actions would later be recognized nationwide. But in that moment, he was not thinking of heroism. He was thinking of the dancers behind him, the people who would have been defenseless, unaware, unprepared. In a night defined by tragedy, this was the moment that prevented it from becoming far worse. The victims ranged from age 57 to 76. They were parents, grandparents, immigrants, teachers, longtime dancers, cherished friends. The 11 lives lost belonged to people who carried decades of stories of resilience, sacrifice, and survival. Many had spent much of their lives working hard, raising families, and finding joy in the simple escape of ballroom dancing. Some had been visiting the studio for years. Others were newer to the community, still finding their rhythm within the familiar group. Their names now stand as monuments to that night. Maimi Enhan, 65. Lilan Lai, 63. Ziyuan Yu, 57. Muay Dai Ung, 67. Hongying Jian, 62. Yulun Cao, 72. Chialing Yao, 76. Valentino Marcos Alvaro, 68. Wintao Yu, 64. Ming Wai Ma, 72. Diana Man Ling Tom, 70. Each was loved, each was needed, and each left behind a void that cannot be measured. Families waited through the night for updates. Some stood behind police tape for hours, refusing to leave until they knew where their loved ones were. Others called hospitals and emergency lines on repeat, praying for a familiar voice to answer. When notifications finally came, the grief was crushing. From Monterey Park, the tragedy struck at its cultural core. This was a city known for its Asian American heritage, a place where immigrants found belonging, where traditions thrived, where elders were honored. The Lunar New Year, normally a time of hope and renewal, became instead a symbol of loss. Festival events were canceled. Businesses dimmed their lights. Residents gathered at makeshift memorials, leaving flowers, candles, notes, and offerings. Nothing about this tragedy was abstract. It was deeply personal, deeply human. Lives that had survived decades of hardship were cut short in minutes. A tradition meant to bring joy instead carried heartbreak. Monterey Park would eventually heal, but it would never forget. After the attack at Lai Lai Ballroom was stopped, law enforcement intensified their efforts to locate the shooter. Surveillance footage, witness statements, and fragments of evidence pointed toward one crucial lead: the white cargo van. Officers across Los Angeles County were alerted. The search spanned city after city as investigators traced the gunman's movements. By the morning of January 22nd, the van was located in Torrance, parked along the curb of a commercial street. Officers approached cautiously, forming a perimeter. They moved in with guns drawn, prepared for the possibility of confrontation. But as they neared the driver's side window, they saw the truth. The gunman was slumped over the steering wheel. He had died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The handgun rested in his lap. The manhunt was over, but the story was not. Investigators searched the van and later examined his residence. They gathered evidence linking him to the shooting, ammunition, documents, items suggesting preparation. Yet despite all their findings, the one answer everyone desperately sought remained elusive: motive. There was no clear explanation, no statement, no confession, no letter. Tran had lived a solitary, increasingly isolated life in the years leading up to the attack. He had once been part of the dance scene but drifted from it. A few weeks before the shooting, he had visited a police station claiming his family was trying to poison him, a sign of paranoia and mental distress. But none of it formed a confirmed motive. None of it clarified why he targeted the ballroom. None of it explained why he took 11 lives. For the families, the lack of answers was another wound: grief without meaning, loss without reason. still. The discovery in Torrance brought an end to the immediate threat. The community could breathe again, shaken, grieving, but safe from further violence. But safety did not erase trauma, and closure did not erase the hole carved into the city's spirit. In the weeks that followed, Monterey Park became a city of quiet resilience. Support services were set up for survivors and families. Counselors met with grieving children, grieving spouses, grieving friends. Donations poured in from across the country. Vigils lit the nights with candles and soft voices singing through tears. Community leaders spoke about unity, healing, and remembrance. But healing was not a straight line. Many survivors struggled with nightmares. Some woke up at the sound of loud noises, their bodies instinctively bracing for danger. Others felt guilt, survivors' guilt, a painful and illogical burden that clung to them. Some questioned why they had lived while loved ones died. Others avoided social spaces entirely, unable to return to places that reminded them of the tragedy. The Star Ballroom itself never returned to the vibrant hub it once was. To survivors, it had become a monument of sorrow, a place of memories both beautiful and horrific. Lai Lai Ballroom eventually reopened, but its community moved differently now, each dancer carrying invisible scars. Brandon Tsay's courage became a national symbol. He was praised by leaders and celebrated as a hero who prevented deeper tragedy. But even he carried the weight of the night. Trauma does not spare the brave. The question of motive lingered permanently in the air. Investigators, psychiatrists, journalists, community members, everyone searched for meaning. But in the end, the story of Monterey Park became one of tragic uncertainty. No official motive was ever confirmed. There was no clear explanation for why a 72-year-old man carried out such violence. In the absence of answers, the community turned toward memory. They honored the victims with portraits, stories, traditions, and yearly remembrances. Families kept their loved ones alive by continuing the values they held dear: compassion, perseverance, and joy. The tragedy of Monterey Park will always be remembered for what it took, but it will also be remembered for what it revealed. A community united in grief, a young man's courage that saved countless lives, and a collective resilience that refused to let violence define them. Healing continues, memory continues, and the story, though devastating, remains a testament to the strength of a community that chose to stand together in the face of unimaginable loss. Thank you for watching. This is Veri Crime.